CCU Orlando, Natural Awakenings Magazine, and Unity of Nashville present The Authentic Spiritual Journey, a weekly show featuring real and practical spiritual conversations from diverse perspectives here on the Experience of the Soul podcast channel. Today, episode 53, You Identify with the Soul and Not the Body, 7 Signs of an Evolving Soul, Part 5. And now your host, Reverend Cynthia Alice Anderson.
Hello and welcome to the Authentic Spiritual Journey. My name is RCA and I am the host of this incredible show, and this is the very beginning of year 2.
Welcome to year 2 of the Authentic Spiritual Journey. Thank you so much for joining us on said journey.
Yes, and here we are once again in 818 Studios with my very talented producer.
Hi everybody, my name is Dave Croft. Once again, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for a year of making the authentic journey with us, the authentic spiritual journey with us.
Right. So we know each of you is on a spiritual journey, and I'll tell you, we're in this together, friends. If we were in church right now, I'd say, will you say that with me? We're in this together, friends. Together? We're in this together, friends. I knew it.
You felt me wait for you to say, you have to say together. You have to say together. That's my cue.
We're in this together, friends. And I'm thrilled to be in year 2. I can't tell you, what started as an idea that then became, it started as a dream, then became a larger idea, and then a goal. I interviewed people. I actually started listening to podcasts myself, and I can't tell you what it means that you are with us on the journey, year 2, and this is very, very exciting stuff. And today is part 5 of the 7 Signs of an Evolving Soul, and we want to welcome all those visiting with us from all over the world.
Including today's country, Lithuania.
I saw you looking it up. Yeah, Lithuania. Bless you, bless you, bless you. And thank you for listening. How many, do we know how many downloads? I mean, is it like 1 or is it like
2?
2 downloads from Lithuania. Very, very cool.
Yeah, very, very cool. And we're coming up on 19,000 downloads.
Coming up on 19,000. Wow. I do have a goal by the end of December. What is really cool is, on our page that shows us the analytics, it shows, different parts of the world lit up. And there's some yet, I don't know if we have any in China yet, do we?
We do have China, yeah.
Oh, we do have China. So anyway, so I can't wait to see even more. My goal is to see the whole map lit up, and we appreciate you being a part of that. I've heard from somebody very recently in Korea that's been listening. So thank you and bless you for your part, the part that you're playing in our show. It means a great.
There's Republic of Korea right there.
Yep. I just heard from him, so that was really wonderful. Somebody that used to live in Florida and is now serving in the military over there.
Oh, that's great.
So I'm so happy we can be supporting our military too. A very gentle, sweet soul, and very strong and amazing soul as well, who's blessed my life. So this is 7 Signs of an Evolving Soul. This is week 5. The title for today's show is You Identify with the Soul and Not the Body. It could even say not the mind, but You Identify with the Soul and Not the Body is the title of the 5th sign. During this series, we've been reading all 7, and we're going to do that at the beginning and probably again at the end of the show, because we want these 7 signs to be in your consciousness. It's like every time I say them, it's like the first time I say it, it plants a seed, and every other time is kind of watering it, because these are things we're all, as humans, as souls, working in and through. And again, we're in this journey together. So the more conscious we are of these evolving these ways, rather these signs of evolving, the more conscious we become, the more we can support one another on the journey, and the more we can see, if maybe we're not doing that, and how we can move more, into that. So 7 signs of an evolving soul. Sign number 1 is you love yourself. Sign number 2, your heart is open and loving. Sign number 3, you are aware you are one with all. Number 4, your life is meaningful and has purpose. Number 5, sign number 5, you identify with the soul and not the body, which is today's show. You identify with the soul and not the body. Sign number 6, You seek opportunities to be vulnerable. And finally, number 7, you feel comfortable in the unknown. I'll be honest, I wish I could record all the rest in one day, Dave, because these are so meaningful, packed with meaning for me. Each of these signs is, once again, I want to remind you, I forgot last show, is based in this idea of spirituality, the idea that we are living from the level of the soul. And for some of us, this might be a new idea. And especially with today's show, we should say a little bit about it. This show in particular, and all of the shows we offer on the Authentic Spiritual Journey, are based in spirituality, in the individual soul journey, not in religiosity. So you can be a Baptist, a Catholic, a Buddhist, or Hindu, and no matter what religion you say, quote, believe in theologically, bottom line is you're a soul, and that transcends any religious dogma. And I said it in the very first show when we were talking about this, that if your number one goal is to adhere to a specific philosophy, that everything we do on Authentic Spiritual Journey might be a challenge for you. And if you found yourself here, there might be a reason you found yourself here. Maybe that's your soul trying to move you forward. And if you're not interested or ready for this, we really do honor that, because we are about the individual spiritual journey, and that being, again, I'm calling it the individual spiritual journey because my journey is going to be different than Dave's, my producer, and different from yours out there as our listener. But what is consistent is the fact that we're on the soul journey, that we're listening at the level of the soul, in other words, through our intuition, to see what's ours to do. And so all of these 7 signs, it doesn't matter what religion you find yourself in, these all are applicable to your soul, because your soul is always growing, always evolving, and there's more to you than meets the eye. Yeah, there's more to you than meets the eye. So today's show, You Identify with the Soul and Not the Body, is all about this, living from soul awareness. Living from soul awareness. So when we're living from body awareness, it's also, it's really, what that really means is we're attached to the physical world. That's what that means when I say you identify with the soul and not the body. In other words, it is protection of the physical at all costs, including our religion, right? So including our religion. If we're identified with the body, we're identified with a certain thing we think is supposed to happen. We are stuck in a logic mindset rather than a spiritual mindset and identifying with the soul. In modern day Christianity, it's about this is all you get, and live the best life you can, and then eventually you die and go to heaven and sing with angels and gold streets. But when you are identifying with the soul, you are really based in spirit always, and seeking to live from the soul in all of your decisions. It also means that we know that our souls are eternal, which means we also believe that your soul is reborn again and again into different incarnations, so that you come to planet Earth simply to grow and evolve in consciousness. That's the only reason to be in the physical. So as much attention as in general the world gives to the physical, really the physical is simply, we're simply here to work out our spiritual evolution on this physical plane. So I want to encourage you to be thinking about that, friends, as we go through the show today. You want to identify with the soul and not the body. Again, this means we're living from the level of the soul. We're listening with our intuition. We're not operating just from the level of the mind. When we are living from the level of the soul, we are tapping into spirit on a regular basis. We are listening with our intuition. And then certainly it impacts how we live in the world, most definitely, but we're not sourced in the world for validation for who we are. So I want to talk about a little bit about how we receive information. And that's important, especially on this week when we identify with the soul and not the body, because we will often talk about follow your spiritual guidance, right? We've said that a lot. I want to talk about the different ways that can come to you. Some people are seers, some people are knowers, and some people are feelers, right? And some people actually, what's it called, are clairaudient also, where they'll actually hear. They will actually hear something. So mostly though, when we I should say, but what has been most common in my experience with the people I've served thousands of people. Usually when we are seeking spiritual guidance, we're really living from the soul. Most of us have one basic way that we receive information for the soul journey. Often it's in times of meditation, or it can be after asking a question in meditation. Then later, the answer will come through. And so, what for me might be a feeling about something, for somebody else, there might be just a real knowing. There might be a real knowing, this is mine to do. And you can differentiate how you receive spiritual guidance just by listening to yourself and how you talk about it. Like I've had people say to me, I just knew it was mine to do. Well, that tells me that person's a knower. Yeah, they're not necessarily a seer or a feeler. Some people will literally see in front of them something. Some people will have, I've heard it called the gift of prophecy, that they can see what's going to happen if it's like they're given a mental, it's almost like an inner movie of what's going to happen or what they are to do. So some people really receive information that way. I think this is important to be aware of, so that as you are receiving these gifts from Spirit to your soul, that you are really paying attention. So you might be a seer, you might be a knower, you might be a feeler, and like I say, some even are hearers. That seems to be a little less common, but it's certainly a way some people receive information. When we are living from the soul and not the body, or we are identifying with the soul and not the body, it doesn't mean we ignore the body. But it means that everything we're taking in, we are running through the lens of the soul rather than a mind and body consciousness. So if something comes to us that's unexpected, let's say an unexpected conversation, if I'm in mind and body consciousness, I'm going to have a certain emotional reaction. And I say, well, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. And, in other words, this is all an egoic way to respond. But if I have an unexpected conversation and I'm living from the soul, I'm going to go, why is this coming to me right now? I'm going to have a different response because I realize the universe is bringing this situation, especially if it's unexpected, because there is something for me to learn, to grow through, to even transmute or transcend right now, rather than react and make wrong and whatever. So that's the difference. When we're living from the body and from the mind, something unexpected comes, we call it wrong and say, what the F are you doing here? How'd you get on my door? But if we're living from the soul or identifying with the soul and something shows up, we go, life is so interesting sometimes, So it doesn't mean that we're not going to have a reaction, but it means that the reaction we have is going to be taken, looked at. We're going to see what lesson there might be for us. And especially if it's something that's a recurring thing that's happening, we want to see, where am I in this? So we're not, often when we're in body consciousness and mind consciousness, we're always blaming people for what is not working out for us. All right. When you're identifying with the soul, if something keeps happening, even if it's negative, we still say on our end, how am I colluding with this? How am I cooperating with this? If we're getting mistreated and we don't want to be, why do we keep putting ourselves in that situation? Right? So if we're just identifying with the mind and the body, we'll say it's all them. Why are they doing that? And certainly, if we're getting treated poorly, yelled at, or even I've supported people over the years being physically abused, so there's a colluding with the person who allows it. I mean, if you're an adult, right? I'm not talking about kids now, but if somebody's treating you badly, and yes, they may be doing something wrong, but where are you in it? And so when we're really living from the soul, we're always asking ourselves, okay, where am I in this? Why am I allowing this to go on? What in my consciousness is continuing to need to learn this lesson? So that's really important for the soul.
Yeah, the image that kind of keeps coming to mind is, in a computer program, a game or whatever, developers put in a logic engine. And that logic and the decisions that get processed through that logic engine are governed by parameters that they establish.
Right.
Sorry if this sounds too heady or weird, but this is just how it's kind of working for me. And it's like which part of you, body, mind, soul,
right,
gets to be in the driver's seat of the decision or logic engine. If it's the body or mind, then you're going to process. Your responses are going to be governed by whatever parameters your body or mind are currently stuck in.
Yes.
Right? But if it's the soul, then your response engine is different. You're able to take a situation and put it through a different set of criteria. Anyway, and your responses are governed by a different logic engine.
Yes,
It's
that's
like, not too heady and weird.
No, that's perfect. Well, it's like looking through a different lens, and so living from kind of, I'll call it like mind-body consciousness, is pretty limiting because what we're really speaking of is ego consciousness, right? And ego is always out for itself. Ego wants to win. Ego wants to make everybody else wrong. Ego feels wronged, and it's always vying for to be man on top, taking, being in charge, winning, so that's what mind or body consciousness is.
And so for a computer logic engine, body or mind consciousness would be just very primal, raw, binary, Boolean, if then, yes, no kind of statements, as opposed to nonlinear, more abstract comprehension, which soul would have.
Exactly. And so when we talk about the soul, remember, soul is both present in the here and now reality, and it is at the same time connected to eternity. So the soul has information the mind on its own can't access. So now the soul, what's beautiful is when we're identifying with the soul and operating, thinking from the soul informs the mind, right? So then we become more intelligent when the mind is listening to the voice of the soul, but the soul is connected to eternity, and the mind is just thinking. That's what the mind does. It's always looking for danger. It's always looking for who's right and what's my position, and and things like that. So the mind is very limiting, but the soul, like I say, will use the mind. So we don't, when I talk about soul, it doesn't mean we're walking around going, "Oh, spirit, whatever you think, and I will do nothing, and I will float. I will be in the isness of the allness of the oneness." No, we are listening with the intuition and then applying it, and then remembering that our soul then can direct our mind and body.
I'm gonna take my computer analogy a little bit further.
Go for it.
So the mind and body would be like an isolated. I have all this internal programming, but as soon as you tap into the soul, you're tapping into, for lack of a better term, a cloud network.
Yes.
A supercomputer who can do a lot more complex mathematics or complex responses that your mind or body couldn't, just because they just don't have the power to do that. They just
they don't have.
You need to lean on that.
Yes, exactly. And remember, the mind and the body are here, but for a time, and your soul is eternal. So we want to identify with the soul because the soul is the only thing that matters. The mind and the body are here to serve the soul, not the other way around. Right. So we want the information from the supercomputer, right? Because we want the most information possible to make good decisions. Right. So the soul is where it's at. The soul is the most important thing. The soul is the thing that comes in when we're born, and when we die, when the body dies, the soul lives on. And so we identify with the soul. One reason is simply in those life transitions of birth and death, those go easier, believe it or not, when we are identified with the soul because we see the body for what it is. It's nothing but a physical condition that we're here to learn and grow through so we can grow and evolve in consciousness. Yep. So I love you're relating it to the computer. As a matter of fact, I had a spiritual teacher do that very early on with computers, and it helped me understand the whole idea of soul. Yeah, soul is expansive and knows things that the mind couldn't possibly know because it's connected to eternity.
And just like, vast computer networks, they're all connected, and there's always room for more. There's always room for expanding. There's always room for additional processors and consciousness to join into it, and it only makes it better.
Right, exactly right. So we're gonna take a quick break that just feels like a good break point, and we'll see you back in a few minutes to continue with You Identify with the Soul and Not the Body.
We'll return to the program in just a few moments, but first, we wanted to give a special word of thanks to our podcast partner, CCU Orlando, who has helped make this episode of the Authentic Spiritual Journey possible. CCU Orlando is a welcoming community dedicated to transforming lives, celebrating diversity, and supporting soul growth. CCU Orlando is located at 771 Holden Avenue in Orlando, Florida, with Sunday services at 9 and 11 a.m. You can stream services live online as well as learn more at christchurchunity.net. We'd also like to thank our podcast partner, Natural Awakenings Magazine of Central Florida and Greater Orlando. Each month, Natural Awakenings magazines across the country take a practical look at the latest natural approaches to nutrition, fitness, creative expression, personal growth, and sustainable living. Natural Awakenings magazine is a free publication and is available in selected stores, health and education centers, healing centers, public libraries, and wherever free publications are located. You could learn more, including advertising opportunities for your business at nacfl.com. And finally, we'd like to extend our special thanks to our podcast partner, Unity of Nashville, a sister ministry of CCU Orlando. If you're searching for a like-minded church community and a personal connection that supports your heart and mind in the Central Tennessee area, then join Unity of Nashville at 10 a.m. every Sunday morning at 5125 Franklin Pike. For more information, head over to unityofnashville.org. And we now return you to this week's episode of The Authentic Spiritual Journey with your host, Reverend Cynthia Alice Anderson.
Welcome back to You Identify with the Soul and Not the Body. That is week 5 on our 7 signs of an evolving soul. The soul is such a vast topic that every time we talk about it, which is nearly every show, we're talking about different aspects. I want to talk a little bit about the soul in terms of why, I guess the why to identify with the soul and not the body. We talked a little bit in the first half about soul awareness versus a body and mind awareness, but years ago when I started meditating, when I started spending time, in the silence, I realized that there was an inner stillness that I was touching into. And not only that, but that I was receiving answers. And I always think of it this way, in real time. Growing up, spirituality seemed like something that you read about in a book, not something you experienced. And when I realized, number one, I was a soul and I had a body, Not that I was a body and had a soul. It is a real different experience, So it's like, oh yeah, this body, okay, I'm a woman this time and I'm here in this a life experience, but next time it's probably going to be something else. So just that one thought of realizing I am a soul and I have a body, first of all, began shifting things. And then I started meditating, and I touched the stillness where I really realized that so much was available to me in terms of spiritual support. Body consciousness or body-mind consciousness is so stuck in the third dimensional realm. And the soul is really a fourth dimension consciousness or Christ consciousness connection. And so this is important because if we're just stuck in the here and now, we're going to be basing answers to questions simply on evidence. And usually the evidence we've built is faulty anyway. But if we're living from the soul or a higher consciousness, it means that we are solving our life problems from a completely different level. So that you've probably heard it said, you can't solve a problem at the same level that it was created. So if you're stuck in the mind or in body consciousness, as we keep calling it, then you're probably going to keep having the same things happen over and over and over and not much resolution. Or maybe you feel like it's resolved, but it's just you forcing your way. And in the soul work, there can be completely different outcomes. Like if you're in body consciousness, you're going to see it's either this or that, So in other words, body consciousness means I'm stuck in third dimension consciousness. Jane Hart always calls it the land of the opposites. I'm stuck in the land of the up, down, right, wrong. And then soul comes in and says there's a third option, right? So living or identifying with the soul means I am waiting for what the third option is. In other words, something higher is going to manifest in and through me, whether it's through my intuition that I'm feeling it or seeing it or knowing it. Somehow a new option is going to come forward for me, right? So, and we begin to have the discipline to wait for that. So there's nothing wrong with making lists of pros and cons, but if you're living from the soul, you will not approach a problem that way. Maybe initially to just get thoughts down, to release that, fine. Nothing wrong with that. But then eventually you want to really trust what you're receiving at the level of the soul. And if there's a difficulty, chances are you're being taught to transmute and transcend the land of the opposites. That's what we're here to do, is to learn to transmute and transcend kind of this ugliness of the third dimensional realm and move into Christ consciousness. I'm calling it Christ consciousness. You could call it Buddha nature. You could call it any number of things. But the idea is that we want to approach life from this higher consciousness, a consciousness that transmutes and transcends the negative third dimensional consciousness of right, wrong, up, down. And that statement from Rumi is always my one of my favorites. Out beyond the ideas of right and wrongdoing, there is a field. I'll meet you there. Mm-hmm. So that's what living from the soul is. Living from this field of infinite consciousness, not in the pettiness of this third dimensional realm. If you look at politics today, that's a wonderful picture of third dimension consciousness. Yeah. Stuck in the third dimensional realm. And I believe there are some wonderful people trying to, elevate the conversation. But it's a wonderful picture of third dimension consciousness. And it just gets louder and louder and more garish, and no problems are solved.
And works its way into families and friendships. And,
mm-hmm. Yeah. And I want to also talk a little bit about meditation as it relates to the soul. anybody who attends our church or my classes it's kind of a joke now. If I ask a question, somebody says, "Isn't the answer always prayer and meditation?" I mean, yes, but there are a lot of people out there who don't know how or find it difficult to sit and meditate. So I heard something recently that I thought was right on point, and it was. I've said a similar thing, but I thought this person said it better, and I can't remember her name right now, or I would totally give it to you. That when we meditation is about quieting the mind, or about rather being quiet on the inside, so that, in other words, we touch stillness. And in that stillness, we find God, the God of our understanding. The scriptures say, the still small voice. God was not in the earthquake, God was not in the fire, but God is in the still small voice. So, but if you're the type of person that has a hard time meditating, there may be another way for you to touch the stillness. And I want to encourage you to find that. I was just talking with a friend yesterday about doing what I like to call angel walks, where I used to do them at Unity Village, which is in Unity Village, Missouri. It's where I went to school, and there's over 1,000 acres, and it's mostly wild. And there's a beautiful trail that goes, through the woods and around a lake, and I would often see deer or fox or turkey, as I walked. But what an angel walk is where you do a walk and you're in total silence. And there's something about walking in total silence and having the intention of that walk being meditative, because sounds are exaggerated. It's like you move into a non-ordinary state of consciousness, and so sounds get a little exaggerated. A tree that you've walked by 100 times suddenly has a message for you. Maybe you'll even suddenly see, there seems like there's a face in that tree, or so that the natural world begins to become alive for you, because you realize everything around you has soul as well. So I'm saying all of this because not everybody wants to just sit and be still to meditate. I've always said, that there's nothing like that stillness. I would also say, if you're the type of person that's really struggling with that, find a new way. I mean, you might be composing music and touch the stillness. You might be playing music.
Yeah. Or gardening, or
painting.
Riding a motorcycle, out
painting.
In the middle of nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. I only said painting, sorry, twice, because I thought I might have
that's fine.
Talked over you. But yeah, I think I love the idea of riding a motorcycle being a place to touch the stillness.
Yeah, I've experienced that.
I believe it.
When Shannon and I took our 20th anniversary trip, we rode our motorcycles up Highway 17, which here in town it's just 17, but you get 17 up into Georgia and South Carolina. It's an historic road, and it goes all the way up the coast. And so we drove from Orlando to North Carolina on our motorcycles, and absolutely, when you're there and like those little 2-lane back roads of Georgia, and the trees over cover, it's almost as if everything slows down. Even though you're going like 60 miles an hour, everything seems to slow down. You could like I don't know, it's just like the leaves kind of sway a little slower. It's very interesting and very, very peaceful experience, even though you're 60 miles an hour on a Harley.
Yeah, that doesn't matter. And again, God is everywhere you are. Your soul is everywhere you are. And so I want to encourage you to find the activities that help you touch the stillness. And again, I love myself meditating. And what's been working for me really recently is doing the deep, the pranayama, the reverse nostril breathing. And I do that every day. And I'm telling you, friends, I couldn't live without that. I don't think. So I want to encourage you to find ways to touch that stillness on a regular basis, because the idea isn't, okay, oh my God, I didn't meditate, I'm a bad spiritual student.
And now my day's ruined.
Yeah. No, the idea is the reason we meditate is then that energy informs the rest of our life. We don't want to just meditate for 15 minutes and then get up and do the same old damn thing. Oh, sorry. Did I just say that?
Yeah, it's all right.
All right. Yes.
Well, I'll allow it.
Yeah. And many of us do that. And that was my experience, kind of growing up in regular mainline religion. In the Methodist church, it was like, okay, we go to church, we sing these songs, we read the Bible, and those are really good lessons. And then we go home and do the exact same thing we've always done.
That's no different than, running for 5 miles to Dunkin' Donuts and eating donuts at Dunkin'.
I know, but I can do that if I've run 5 miles.
I have negative calories, so I've got to put that back. But yeah, it defeats the purpose. You're not getting the benefits out of that if you just return to what you're normally doing.
Right. So, and I want to go a little deeper too, because I've shared this example several times in classes over the last 10 years, and because it's proven helpful, I want to mention it again. When we are seeking to live from the soul, we are on a regular basis listening to the inner voice of guidance. And again, what is right for you will maybe only be right for you, and probably another soul, won't understand it. But there are negative energies that have to be dealt with at times within our very own consciousness. We are, as we teach in Unity, that we are spirit, soul, and body. And so those are 3 distinct parts, but not separate parts. And we often also talk about what's called the law of attraction. And the law of attraction says that whatever we, think about or focus on, it's like we have this invisible magnet to draw that to us. All right. Well, it's actually true on every level. And the thoughts we think, we attract more of that, especially the words we say, because words are so creative, we attract that. Well, that's true with the conscious parts, but it's also true with the unconscious parts. And so sometimes we can attract negative energy into our consciousness, and we're not aware of it. It becomes an aspect of our shadow self, or that's how it would be said in psychology, that something, it's unknown to us, but it's an energy we're carrying around. I'm saying all this because there was a time in my life where I thought I was, quote, following my guidance. I'm doing air quotes for those of you listening, following my guidance. And I was really listening to an unhealthy, negative energy that I didn't know. I was kind of new to it, so I thought I was doing the right thing. And I was, luckily I was working with a mentor who said to me, I want you to really revisit that. It was like, are you sure? I said, well, my guidance is. She said, well, let's check that out. And I said, well, what do you mean? How do I check it out? She said, I want you to, imagine how you're receiving this and have a dialogue with this energy that you feel is giving you guidance. Well, that was a new idea for me. And I did things like I asked it its name, and then I asked it, she said, say these words after me. I command in the name of God, you show your true self to me. I command in the name of God, you show your true self to me. And so when I got this picture in my mind and I said it out loud, this, like what was a sweet kind of angel image, turned into this green, like gargoyle-ish looking thing. And this is all in my consciousness, right? I'm not saying there's little green men running around. And it was like, ooh, that was a negative energy that I didn't know was there. Okay. So then a few weeks later, I was working with receiving guidance from Spirit. And I got this picture of Jesus in my mind. And I thought, well, I was fooled before. So I'm going to say to this energy, I command in the name of God, you show your true self to me. And what Jesus did in this case was he put his hands on his chest and flipped himself inside out, and it became this the galaxy. I mean, today it brings tears to my eyes. It was clearly Christ consciousness. I said, well, that's good enough for me. So we have the power to demand in the name of God that whatever is giving us guidance show itself to us. And we want to be careful about what we're receiving. Because I've had people tell me, well, my guidance is, to do such and such, and I'm like, let's check that out. Because that doesn't sound like spirit to me. So we can be unaware of negative energy. And negative energy simply is something that comes to us through negative thought forms or even old childhood wounds that are not yet healed. So everybody has this. The good news is there's nothing to be afraid of because the light is the most powerful. So just because I'm saying there's negative energy, I'm not saying there's a guy in a little red suit running around trying to, tempt everybody. There are negative energies, though, that are in the world today. And they, like we say with the law of attraction, with things that are conscious and wonderful that we draw to ourselves, it is the same with negative energy. So we want to just be informed about that. And if we are, seeking guidance, we want to make sure that we are getting it from source, and not from a negative energy. And negative energies can be very tricky. And so that's also part of the soul journey is like growing up into learning how to differentiate this positive and negative energy. So I've never talked about this very much on the show, but I hope it's helping people.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So living from the soul is a really wonderful adventure because every day is a new day. Every day there's a potential for expanded awareness of God in our lives. There is a potential to expand our awareness of who we are and what we are here to do. Identifying with the soul expands every aspect of us, our mind, our body, our soul, in terms of awareness and in terms of potentiality. When we're living from the mind and the body, we are very, very limited because all those things are based in the ego. And the soul is really based in spirit. Again, we are spirit, soul, and body. All of those are communicating with one another. But when we identify first with the soul, the mind and the body follow. You can't do it the opposite way. So we want to first identify with the soul and remember that not only do we have a soul, we are a soul. You are a soul first and foremost, and your body and mind then should be serving your soul. So when you're seeking guidance on what yours to do, when you are seeking a new job or looking for a relationship or even thinking about what's your next step on the journey, we want to contact the soul, realizing that this is our highest nature and that the soul of us is connected to spirit, connected to eternity, and always is desiring to give us what's best and for our next step. So I want to encourage you on the journey, friend, to remember to identify with the soul and not the body, because it gives us an expanded awareness, not only of who we are, but who God is. So I'm going to read now our 7 signs of an evolving soul. I'm going to give those to you now. Again, we're just planting these in your consciousness, and know each time you hear them, you're kind of watering the soil to have these ideas really take root. 7 signs of an evolving soul. Sign 1, you love yourself. Sign number 2, your heart is open and loving. Sign number 3, you are aware you are one with all. Sign number 4, your life is meaningful and has purpose. Sign number 5, you identify with the soul and not the body. Sign number 6, you seek opportunities to be vulnerable. Sign number 7, you feel comfortable in the unknown. So we thank you, dear friend, for joining us for the show today. I just honor you on the journey, and I applaud you. Yay! This is your personal encouragement. Yay! For living from your soul and not the body, because it is it takes effort at times on the spiritual journey to remember to live from the level of the soul. So we bless you on the journey, dear friend. As always, thank you for joining us again, the beginning of year 2. We bless you. We thank you for being a part of this important work in the world. Thank you for supporting me and Dave, and not only us, but really the message getting into the world. So we bless you on the journey, and thank you for joining us.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of The Authentic Spiritual Journey, presented by CCU Orlando, Natural Awakenings Magazine, and Unity of Nashville. The Experience of the Soul podcast channel is made possible through the continued support of our angel patrons Dove Portland, Peter Gibson, Paul Caswell, J.J. Hamilton, and Arlene Meyer. If you would like to help be a part of bringing shows like this and other programs to the channel, please consider becoming a patron. You can learn more about supporting the channel, along with show notes and information about our other programs at experienceofthesoul.com. And if you enjoyed this podcast, you can help spread the word by leaving a 5-star review on Apple Podcast, Google Play, Stitcher, or the platform of your choice. The Authentic Spiritual Journey is copyright 2019, Cynthia Alice Anderson, all rights reserved. Our theme music is composed by Dave Croft and used with permission. The Experience of the Soul podcast channel is a production of 818 Studios.